On behalf of the Academic Health Science Network for the North East and North Cumbria, I'm delighted to welcome you all in person to the 18th Bright Ideas in Health Awards. The last one we held in person was back in 2019, which feels quite a long time ago. But once again tonight, we are celebrating fantastic innovation and true excellence across the regional healthcare sector. These awards celebrate the achievements of frontline innovators who've risen to the challenge of letting us know how and where they believe that improvements to the service provided to patients can be made. We have, as ever, received a record number of entries, and we're grateful for the invaluable support of all of our sponsors. Our headline sponsor tonight is the North East and North Cumbria Integrated Care Board. Our category sponsors are Centre for Process Innovation, Health Education England North East, and NIHR Clinical Research Network North East and North Cumbria. Thank you goes to our other sponsors, County Durham and Darlington NHS Foundation Trust, North East Futures University Technical College, South Tees Hospitals NHS Foundation Trust, South Tyneside and Sunderland NHS Foundation Trust, Sintons LLP, the Newcastle upon Tyne Hospitals NHS Foundation Trust, Cumbria, Tyne and Wear NHS Foundation Trust, SME Centre for Excellence, Teesside University, NIHR Applied Research Collaboration, Sunderland University, North of England Commissioning Support Unit, Invest Newcastle, and University of Northumbria. Thank you all. Please give them a round of applause. So this year we have 30 finalists over 10 categories. Our winners will be announced, but later this evening. We're going to keep you waiting. We're supporting local charity, the Percy Headley Foundation. It's an incredible organisation, and we are delighted that this year's Bright Idea in Health Awards will help to raise vital funds to support the work they do to improve the lives of people with additional needs across the region. The Percy Headley Foundation was founded 70 years ago in 1953 as a special school for children with cerebral palsy. When the first school opened, there were just 12 students. They are rightfully proud of the difference they've made to thousands of lives over the past 7 decades, having delivered 30 million hours of education, care, nursing and therapy in that time. We have some lovely speakers for you now, and first up I'd like you to give a very warm welcome to the Chief Executive Officer of the AHSN NENC, Dr. Nicola Hutchinson.
Thank you, Kim, for the kind introduction. Wow, it looks really impressive from down there, but absolutely amazing from up here, although by the end of this speech, I'll probably be blind. So I'm delighted to welcome you this evening to the 18th Bright Ideas in Health Awards. So this evening is extra special as it marks our first face-to-face event since we met more than 3 years ago. At that time, we had absolutely no idea what was ahead of us, and today is particularly poignant as it marks 3 years exactly that we were told by the government that this was a moment of national emergency and we needed to stay at home, protect our NHS and save lives. And I do believe, although I've not seen it because it was daylight, but the Millennium Bridge is actually being made yellow today as a kind of a tribute to those that lost their lives through COVID. So of course there are so many stories, some happy, many that are very sad, and of course many that are much graver than others. This evening I'd like to take the time to thank all of you that work tirelessly on the front line to keep us safe, to protect our loved ones and friends, and to those that worked on emergency and contingency planning, creating fabulous initiatives such as the Nightingale, the COVID Lighthouse and Innovation Labs, and to those that enabled us to go back to some sort of more normality, like this evening. For example, those of you that are in the room that supported the vaccine trials and its subsequent rollout. Our region led the way in many aspects of the pandemic, and we should be extremely proud of the vibrant and cohesive ecosystem, as well as our amazing workforce. So a special thanks to you all this evening. So this evening is, of course, about innovation. And given the significant pressures that our health and social care services are currently facing, I really have been truly amazed by the large volume of high-quality ideas that we received for this competition. The entrepreneurial spirit and creative minds of our region are very much alive, and it is this spirit that we need to capture, because it is this that will change patient outcomes as well as helping our economy to thrive. So, as you can probably tell, I'm immensely proud of this event, having watched it grow from a cup of tea and a sticky bun over at the Sage in Gateshead with about 20 innovators through to one of the most prestigious healthcare events. I think this is my 15th year of supporting the event. I know I don't look old enough. I was on work experience. But Sarah Black over there has actually been involved since the very, very beginning, and she definitely doesn't look old enough. She's got one of those fancy paintings in a loft. So firstly, as Kim's already said, the awards would not be possible without the financial support of our amazing sponsors, many of which have been advocates and ambassadors of the event for several years. So on behalf of the HSN, thank you so much to all of our sponsors for your continued support and invaluable contribution. I would also like to express my sincere thanks to the Integrated Care Board for being our headline sponsor this evening, but also a special thanks to Sam and other members of the ICB team who continue to support our wider endeavours as an organisation. And some of you may have realised that earlier on today, it's one of those things where you try and plan everything in one day. It seems like a good idea until it actually happens. We launched our Health and Life Sciences Pledge over at the Vermont. That was a joint initiative with the ICB, so thank you for that. So this evening, as Kim's already said, our dedicated charity for this evening is Percy Headley. She's already talked about the fact that Percy Headley supports children and service users with complex learning difficulties and disabilities. I'm delighted to welcome members of the Percy Headley team. They're somewhere over that way, and they would really welcome any kind donations that you can make, because this truly will make a difference to service users. I also want to thank the members of my HSN team that have worked tirelessly to make this event a reality. They've worked so hard behind the scenes, and it couldn't have be done without you. And this, just to note, this also includes the due diligence and triaging of more than 200 applications that we received for this award ceremony tonight. So thank you so much. So to our innovators in the room this evening, a special thank you to you. Some of you may not have been selected as a finalist this evening, or you may have been a finalist or an applicant in a previous year. But thank you for taking the time to think differently, and I'm delighted that you can join us this evening to celebrate. If you are sitting in the audience today thinking, I have an idea and I'm not sure what to do with it, or you might be sitting there thinking, I'm unlikely to come up with an idea, but I've got several problems that I face as part of my daily role, then please do get in touch. The identification of a problem or an unmet need is a critical stage in the innovation life cycle that many of us overlook. And here at the HSN, we have a team of dedicated experts that will be able to support your idea across the entire innovation life cycle. So finally, best of luck to our finalists and huge congratulations. I know I've said this before in previous years, but really, really, you should be immensely proud, because this year I think it was the toughest competition ever, and it's absolutely amazing to have you all together in the room again. So I hope you have a fabulous evening. Thank you.
So my interest in healthcare and innovation came at quite a young age. My older brother, Stephen, or Stevie as he was known to many, was born with severe cerebral palsy. He was actually born in Bishop Auckland General Hospital, but was transferred to the special care unit at Newcastle General Hospital, which is about approximately 45 miles away from home. And he spent between 5 and 6 months of the first months of his life in Newcastle General Hospital. So as a result of that, my mum had to give up work to sort of be with him. And then thereafter, he was transferred to Bishop Auckland General Hospital. He pretty much defied medical sort of science, because my parents were told he wouldn't live till he was 1 or 2, but he actually survived until he was 20. In the late 1980s or early 1990s, my parents were asked to trial 2 pieces of equipment. One was a portable nebulizer inhaler and the other was a portable suction machine. They were very simple innovations and they were quite small, but it meant that the 2 pieces of equipment could be put underneath his wheelchair. For the first time ever, it enabled us to be a family of 4. So the innovations didn't just really help him, they changed family life forever. Those fundamental 2 pieces of equipment were sort of critical to our life, so my mum kept them with his treasured possessions when he passed away. So this was the portable nebulizer inhaler. As you'll see, it's just a simple foot pump that's attached to the nebulizer mask, and it allows the Ventolin or salbutamol medicine to actually be aspirated through the mask. And then this here was the handheld suction machine. And I'm not quite sure how they did this with one hand, but you pump here, it creates a vacuum, and then this tube itself would actually go into my brother's mouth to sort of clear his airways. My personal experience has helped shape my experience in life. So I feel very, very passionate about my current role at the HSN and the HSN in its entirety, because every day we're being exposed to new ideas, to unmet needs, where we can actually make a difference. So we've had some fantastic ideas come through the Bright Ideas Awards over the years, from very, very high-tech and complicated ideas where we may have even struggled with the title, through to very, very simple ideas that have ultimately all gone on to help and benefit patients.
The Kids Med team was so excited when we won this award, and it was one of those moments where it made us feel like a real team, and that actually gave it a little bit more push and made people want to take part in it more. So that's been really important as to how you disseminate and spread the word of your brilliant things that you've developed.
The Health Award can be a great way to demonstrate independent recognition for your innovation. It can also be a motivator and an advantage when you apply for further project funding.
For one, obviously, you get the biggest thing is you get recognition, which puts a lot more focus onto your project. It's nice to be able to sit down in front of potential investors and stuff like that if you need to raise funds to say, look, it's an award-winning product. So as far as giving the project credibility, that was key to getting to where it is now, actually, because you can get more people involved.
To some extent it legitimises what we're doing here. It legitimises the innovative kind of practices and ideas that other organisations are having. Unless you've got a platform for that kind of profile raising, then you can often go unnoticed. So it is really, really important that we've got an organisation like your organisation that's noticed what we're doing and rewarded us for it. Essentially, it's been a great help for us.
There are so many altruistic people working in healthcare across the region, and I'm really privileged that we get to work with them on a day-by-day basis, and the impact that they can make directly to patient care, and I feel a real sense of pride in working with those people.
So glad we were able to show that again. I noticed Nicola's legged it. Oh no, she's back now. Well done. It's absolutely great. Thank you very much. And obviously so relevant with our charity night, the Percy Headley Foundation. Next up, please would you welcome Chief Executive of the NENC Integrated Care Board, Sam Allen.
Hello and good evening. I just want to see, Nicola, gosh, your passion, you can see absolutely what drives you. And I just wonder if we could just all give a round of applause really for the Academic Health Science Network. So I'm really delighted to be here at these annual awards celebrating innovation across our regional healthcare sector. And even better that this is our first face-to-face event since 2019. It's really hard, I think, to think back and remember the impact of these COVID years, especially given that we're still living with COVID, and of course we've just had the 3rd anniversary of the first lockdown. I know that every single person in this room will have their own personal and professional experience during this time, and I would therefore like to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for everything you did and continue to do during such difficult times. Thank you. So like everyone across the healthcare sector, we're really focused on the future, not the past. And I know everybody in this room has a real role in supporting the future, in delivering and or experiencing innovation right across health and care. And after all, we're really here today with one purpose, and that purpose is to make a difference to our communities, our patients and citizens, but also our colleagues working in health and care. We know innovation is and will continue to be pivotal to achieving this. So I'm therefore delighted that as an Integrated Care Board that we can celebrate those who are innovating now, who are exploring the new norm, but will also create a better future for us all. And just on that point, I just want to pause because the buzz out in the bar area when everybody arrived was just tremendous. And I don't know whether, like me, some of you will have met the young people that have joined us today from the North East Futures College. If you're out there, this is going to be really embarrassing. It's going to feel like probably a head teacher at school. Could you stand up, the young people that have joined us from the North East? Yeah? So the best bit about the conversations were the conversations I had with those young people here tonight with us that want to be nurses, want to be doctors. So I hope you're inspired this evening, but also just remember, in the future, you've got to look after us too. So all of your work, it's really central to delivering all that we've promised in our recent integrated care strategy, better health and well-being for all. Innovation is absolutely key to our ambition at being the best at getting better. We want to be the region across the UK that it's the best at getting better. And let's be honest, the region really has been at the forefront of widespread innovation for centuries. Even if we were to concede that the Romans did do something for us, you could argue even all those thousands of years ago. Here in the North East, we have innovated. We've been behind lifeboats, light bulbs, locomotives, steam turbines, windscreen wipers, perspex. We could go on and on and on. This is a region that absolutely has that entrepreneurial spirit at the heart of it. And I think for us to be at the forefront of innovation in health and care, we need to ensure that we also recognise those tectonic plates of innovation that are changing around us now. It's not just about the gadgets or the widgets or the new piece of kit. It's also about people with lived experience, patient activation, treatment innovations, gene, immunotherapy, artificial intelligence. We could have asked GP Chat to probably write the speech this evening. Virtual healthcare, technological innovation, wearable technology, we could just go on and on, all of which is feeding data and that increased emphasis on digital transformation. Quite simply, what we know and live with now is out of date and probably has been for a few years. It's therefore, I think, impossible for any individual organisation to keep abreast of this tectonic shift. The only way if we're going to succeed is through collaboration, is through working together and really using our collective capability and strength, both within and also outside of the NHS, to really create that clear vision for the future. But it's however important to remember that, like our people and communities, innovation comes in all shapes and sizes. Sometimes I think the next big thing is going to be lots of small things. And actually the most successful innovation really has to recognise the patient and citizen need and gap. A great example of this, I think, is the fantastic projects that have been shortlisted today. Another example, one from Gateshead, few of you may know, a 72-year-old grandmother from Gateshead called Jane Snowball pioneered shopping online right from her own living room as part of a 1984 council scheme to support the housebound. Jane used her TV remote control, a piece of technology called Videotex, to send her order for margarine, cornflakes and eggs down the road to a local Tesco, who then delivered the goods home. Innovation like that here in the North East paved the way for an industry now worth 117 billion just to the UK economy alone. We've got Jane Snowball to thank for that. She was at the start of it. It was her bright idea. And it would be almost impossible to really quantify the social value that that's brought in terms of people who are isolated, who now depend on that type of technology in their everyday life. However, there are many we don't even hear about. Innovation isn't and shouldn't ever just be about technology or the project that looks the shiniest. Just this week, I spent an afternoon visiting a Living with Dementia group in Hebburn. I have to say, it was absolutely fantastic. It was a group set up by a person who'd lost their mother to dementia in 2017, who had recognised that there was a real dearth of support for carers of people with dementia. One small innovation, activated by volunteers, self-supported and funded, making a massive difference to our local community. We need to make sure that we recognise those innovations in the same way we are doing this evening, and we need lots more of them. Very often, I think people think innovation requires significant time and money to be successful, neither of which guarantees success. So I therefore really urge everyone to innovate, no matter how big or small, challenge you to kind of pass that challenge on to your teams, but also to ask how are we really supporting our teams and our organisations to innovate? How are we inspiring the leaders of the future to innovate? If we can't answer these questions when we come back here next year to celebrate these awards, then I think we're missing a massive opportunity out in our community. And just finally, it would be really remiss of me not to take this opportunity to talk about the share of national funding our region gets to support research and innovation. In the north, so this also includes Manchester, Leeds and Sheffield, and some people tell me Leeds isn't in the north, but it does include that for the purpose of this. About £21 per person is spent on health innovation research. In the Golden Triangle, Oxford, Cambridge and London, it's about £62 per head. As the Bright Idea Awards demonstrates, I think we punch well above our weight in terms of the outcomes we're getting. But we do need to be clear that we do need to push for greater inward investment in both research and innovations into our region. And this is something that both I will personally commit to doing at every opportunity. As I conclude, I just want to share some of my excitement for the future, for our future. We have world-beating and groundbreaking teams all across all aspects of health and care in our organisations. We are trailblazing in scientific fields like genomics, as just one example, something we should all be rightly proud of. I am confident that in health and care across the North East and North Cumbria, it is in a healthy state. Could we do more? Yes, absolutely. Will we do more? Without a shadow of a doubt. But underpinning this will be partnerships. Partnerships that allow us to go and collaborate in ways that we've never done before. So as Arthur C. Clarke said, the only way to discover the limits of the possible is to go beyond them into the impossible. Thank you.
Sam, thank you very much indeed. Next up is Chief Commercial Officer of NHS England, Jacqui Rock. Please give her a warm welcome.
Hey, good evening. Great to be here. I love coming up to Newcastle and to this area. I'm very much of the opinion that when we were sort of all made, whichever belief you think we were made in, Geordies and Essex girls were put in the same batch, because I feel so comfortable up here, I really do. Yeah, it's a great place. Honestly, I was saying to Sam earlier, I could move here tomorrow. I'd miss Billericay. I would miss Billericay, but this is great. So thank you. Delighted to be here with you all today on behalf of NHS England. So, you know, a third of the 155 billion NHS budget goes through commercial and procurement processes, significant amount. And the NHS, as you know, we're one of the biggest commercial organisations in the country, in Europe. And we buy on behalf of the 5th biggest employer in the world. And the reason I'm coming out with those stats clearly is because the opportunity to utilise that spending power to deliver the best health innovations to our patients faster than ever is, quite frankly, mind-blowing. But of course it's achievable. That's what's really, really exciting. So I'm absolutely honoured to be in this room, because I know the people that are in here. I've been chatting to some of you outside. These are the people who don't take no for an answer. These are the people who believe in their ideas. These are the people who don't give up, ever. These are the people that have a passion, sometimes reckless, I'm up for reckless, to pursue an innovation as they know it will save lives and change the world. So it's amazing. So, you know, I thought I'd share with you a couple of my innovations, which haven't been so successful, I have to say. So a couple of them back in the 80s, I had this brilliant idea that I wanted to change my flared jeans, bootcut jeans, into drain pipes. So I created a Velcro inner leg, which was really quite brilliant. You know, I can have flares, I can have drain pipes, until I got stuck to the seat on the central line. That was really very unfortunate. And then my other great bright idea, clearly this wasn't health related, was a pair of platform shoes. I thought, I'm going to put a little fish tank in the heel. And so I actually created the said shoe with the fish tank, until one of my friends in horror said, Jacqui, you can't put a fish in that, you know, it's gonna, especially the way I walk, you know, it's gonna go. So I ended up putting a little bit of orange peel in there, which didn't have the same impact. So seriously, Vivienne Westwood had no worries, and I stayed being an accountant. I think it was a better route for me. And of course, recently, I think one of my greatest bright ideas was creating a strategy to buy billions of LFD COVID tests, when actually nobody had actually produced them at the time, and we certainly weren't manufacturing them. So that was, you all know how that one ended. You know, and the NHS, I mean, we've had some gems as well. And I think one of my favourites is Quarry House, which is down in Leeds. And it's one of our, I think it's DHSC and NHS's head office. I don't know if you know, there's this famous carpet in Quarry House. Someone had a bright idea to get some designer to put this amazing carpet all the way through the foyer and the bottom floor. It was so expensive and so a work of art, no one was allowed to walk on it, which I just thought, so everybody had to literally go round the back, up through the basement, and it was just a no-go area for about 2 years. And there's all sorts of other very bizarre things we've done. I particularly would like to understand whose bright idea it was to run a course on equine leadership in the NHS. I'm sure it was very, very valid. You know, but I'm really, really privileged every single day. I'm really lucky in this job, really lucky as the Chief Commercial Officer, because I see innovations all the time. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was at the AAC Clinicians entrepreneurial event, and you know, everyone was pitching. It was a bit of a Dragon's Den kind of environment. And you know, the things that people, the great ideas. So for example, what particularly stayed in my mind is a diagnostic test for esophageal cancer that literally you swallow, the sponge expands in your stomach and they bring it out and they can pick up all the cells, completely non-intrusive. The things that we're now doing with AI in terms of blood testing, absolutely unbelievable. And of course, in this age of digital, you know, the apps, everybody's coming up with, I mean, sometimes we have to slow down a bit on the apps, right? It can get a bit crazy, but the amount of brilliant apps I've seen that help people with mental health, it's phenomenal. The list is so long. And, you know, this is one of the reasons I took the job in the NHS, and it's one of the reasons I'm staying here in the NHS, because where in the world is it as exciting for innovation as in the NHS? Where in the world do we have such an impact on humankind? It's just incredible. So let's celebrate the innovators, the inventors, the entrepreneurs, the ones that dare to do different, dare to create, and dare to challenge. So have a great evening, everyone. Thank you very much.
Jacqui, thank you very much. We're delighted to have you here this evening. Our next speaker is co-founder and head of research and development at PocDoc. Please welcome Vlad Gubala.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the warm welcome, and thank you to the organizers for inviting me here. It's the first time I come here to Newcastle. So I'll try to tell you a little story about PocDoc. It's a company I co-founded relatively recently. It's my first commercial venture and the first company I co-founded. My background is, strictly speaking, academic. So I'm an organic chemist by background, so if there's any organic chemist, I would like to have a word with you. I started my education in East Europe, then moved to America, then came back to Europe, settled for a little bit in Ireland in an institute which was bridging academic institution, academic environment with commercial sector. So we came up with lots of different innovative products for both human and veterinary diagnostics. And I think I can say that throughout my career, I was lucky and fortunate enough that I was influenced by very clever people. So all of my colleagues and all of my bosses and friends that I was connected with, they were great scientists. They were great innovators. Some of them founded companies that they grew them into a viable, successful businesses. And then they sold the businesses, and then now the products are used by people. So I believe I learned from them. So when I was co-founding PocDog as a company and as a product, I actually used all the knowledge that I had and the right pathways from the innovative idea all the way to the innovative product. Very, very similar, or pretty much the same as the academic science health network is actually doing, so that you have this identified unmet medical need, and you take all the steps all the way down to the innovative product. But what's more important is then you demonstrate that the product actually makes a difference, makes a measurable difference on humans' life, okay, on people's life. So that was something I learned very early. So the story of PocDog actually dates a little bit before, so it goes back to almost 2015 or 2016. And there were several events that were happening in my life that influenced why I co-founded PocDog and why it actually came into being. So the first thing was that it just happened that in my family and a close circle of friends, they reminded me that coronary heart disease is actually a nasty beast that kills a lot of people on globally. In fact, in UK alone, 460 people die from coronary heart disease every day. In fact, my speech is about 15 minutes, and statistically speaking, 5 people will die from coronary heart disease whilst I finish my talk. There's about 100,000 people hospitalized in UK every year, taking beds, NHS hospitals, with coronary heart disease conditions and cardiovascular conditions. So it kept me thinking, how is this possible in this digital era, in the era where we can measure almost anything? As was mentioned, you can swallow things now, and then it measures and it detects, diagnoses things. So I was just puzzled with this. How is it possible that my friends were having these hospitalizations because of their heart disease, because of the cardiovascular conditions? My wife's grandmother passed away at the time. And I just kept thinking, most of these, maybe some of it, maybe all of it, was actually preventable. So coronary heart diseases were the ones that I started to believe that actually we can influence it. We can actually do something, and then we can actually change the outcome, okay? We have the power to do it. And I was wondering, I was asking all these questions, what is it? What is it that makes people not to think about the risks, or what information people need to have so that they can assess the risk of heart attack or heart disease? So I had to think about it, and at the same time when I was having all these questions, I was approached by my present co-founder, Kieran Roost, and her husband, Steve, who is the CEO of our company, and they actually experienced something very, very similar to me. So we were just 3 people kind of met in serendipity, which had the very thing, several things in common, and we just put the heads together and set the wheels in motions. And effectively, we then tried to speak to GPs. We talked to hundreds of general practitioners. We spoke to pharmacists. We spoke to nurses, policymakers. We spoke to layman people to try to boil down the answer, why is it? And what is the information that the GP would need or the pharmacist would need to advise person what they need to do to lower the risk of having a heart attack, okay? And then we found out that, yes, okay, there was a connection between heart disease and cholesterol, and GPs were using information about cholesterol in a blood to assess the risk of heart attack. So that was one obvious thing that we were thinking, so what? I mean, cholesterol is simple things to measure. It shouldn't be a difficult thing to do. So we bought every cholesterol test possible, and we thought, okay, what's wrong with this? What is wrong with this cholesterol test that you can buy from Amazon or any shop sometimes or pharmacies? So we tested it. I even sent it to my mom. Kieran sent it to her dad. So we tested elderly people. And my 75-year-old mom, she was able to do the tests, but she was not able to either interpret them, or she was sometimes able to interpret them because I bought a very expensive digital reader and everything that was spitting out the numbers, but she did not know what the numbers meant. She just was lost with it. So therefore we were thinking, okay, so we have to design POCDOC as a test not to be another cholesterol test. POCDOC cannot be another cholesterol test. POCDOC has to be a platform which has everything together. So it is something where the results are explained to the people, where the person who takes the test has to be simple in the first place, has to take the test, and the results are displayed for the user in a simplistic way. The results are then explained, what do they mean, and also, more importantly, the results are integrated within the patient records. So GPs or pharmacists or any healthcare professionals who have access to these records can make an informative decision of what to advise the person to do. And this all was actually happening while at the same time, my mom, again, 75-year-old woman, she was able to cook a dinner and put the dinner on a plate, take a photograph of a plate, send it to me on WhatsApp and saying, look what I'm having for dinner. So I was thinking, how come my mom, I know what my mom is having for dinner before she even finishes the dinner, but when she is trying to identify and analyze what is happening with her cholesterol levels, she could not do it. She could not understand the test. So we designed the test in a way that is very, very simple. It doesn't require massive user manipulation. The only thing it requires is a finger prick from a finger, transfer the blood on a test, wait 7 minutes, and take a photograph with your mobile phone. So it's analogy to that, preparing dinner and then taking photograph of a plate. It's actually effortless. It's the same effort as that. So 75-year-old woman can actually do this. So we designed this test in this way, and now currently we obtained a CA mark, so UK CA mark, so we're manufacturing this test in bulk. We have partnered with several pharmacies across the UK, so we're actually offering this test and screening a large population of people so that they can actually have informed decisions about their cardiovascular state. I'm also very happy to say that we engage in collaborations with AHSN partners, namely with Professor Julia Newton and her team, and we're running a pilot study with 10,000 people that we want to screen, particularly in hard-to-reach areas, communities which have limited access to healthcare, communities that normally would not engage with GPs, but communities where we can go and give a complete health check in 8 minutes and assess the risk of cardiovascular disease in that community, which would be transforming and entirely revolutionary. So we would like to transform completely the way a home blood test is done at home, where all the results are integrated and the person takes ownership of their lifestyle. The changes we're asking sometimes people to do are actually sometimes very small. If I consider my friends, again, who had heart attack and they were forced to change their lifestyle as a result of the heart attack, I couldn't help but think, if they know that they can do a little change before that so that they can avoid going to the hospital and avoid being forced to do the changes, that would be obviously much better outcome for everybody and their families too. Now, closing with my mom's experience, she ultimately resorted to having some exercise. So she decided, okay, no statins, we will not be going the statins route. I will just start walking. So she decided to walk. So she's 75, and she walks about 5 kilometers, which is about 3 miles, give or take, every day. No matter what the weather is, she just walks. And now I can monitor, I can see that the cholesterol levels are dropping. What's more important is that she's outside. She's, having a good time outside. The sun's shining, her vitamin D levels are probably boosted, which means her mental health is better, her immunity is boosted as well. So it has a multiple effect. It's not just the cholesterol measurement. It has a multiple effect on the well-being of the actual person. So that is the message, and that is the actual key area where we in POCDOC believe we can make a difference. And that's where the innovation comes in. But again, we wouldn't be able to actually achieve it without collaborating with the right people, with the clinicians, with Julia's team particularly. In a short future, we have a plan of testing the entire department of police department in Middlesbrough. We think it's a stressful environment, so that should show whether the cholesterols are fluctuating in high levels or not. And then, so we are very excited about it. We are also thinking, well, maybe we should go and test people at football matches, you know? Well, I can see the Premier League football at the same time. I can test some people, so I kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So we have all these ideas, especially with communities where normally they wouldn't be tested. So we like to see tested as many people as possible, screen them, and then take the burden off the GPs and simply just say, okay, maybe some people have to go on statins, which is now be able to prescribe even by pharmacists, but we will encourage people to take ownership of their life and then do a little change in the lifestyle, which will actually go a long way, and we can reduce these 100,000s of hospitalization in the NHS to whatever degree is possible. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say about POCDOC. I am here accompanied by my friend and a CTO of a company, Robin Matthews, who is sitting here with me at the table too. So if you'd like to speak with me about the test, I even have the test here with me. If you want to see it, we can show you the app. There's another app, yes. So please come to us. We'll be happy to speak with you. If you think you have a community which deserves to be tested and you would like to have a pilot test, please come again. I'm sure we can figure something out, and we can maybe help to test a community of people who normally would not be tested. And maybe this way we can save a human life. All right? Thank you very much for your attention.
Vlad, thank you very much indeed. That was really, really interesting. Now, the next and final speaker has the unenviable position of being all that stands between you and dinner, so please be nice to him, okay? He is cardiothoracic consultant surgeon, South Tees Hospital NHS Foundation Trust. Please welcome Mr. Jonathan Ferguson.
Good evening, and thank you. I am the last thing between you and dinner. I am here because I am indebted to Nicola and her team, and I'm her performing seal. I'm here to talk about a very personal subject, about personal endeavour, enterprise, innovation, and success against the odds. I'm here to tell you why Ireland beat England at rugby at the weekend. This is very personal to me. I've got a number of roles in life. I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon. I'm head of cancer for South Tees. I run a targeted lung health check program, training program director for cardiothoracic surgery for the North East. But my major role, and Louise is here tonight, is I'm a dad. And I watched my 2 boys, Thomas and Angus, playing an internet security game, which is called Interland. And it took them through all the bad parts of the internet. And I thought to myself, well, why don't we discuss cancer? And cancer, to my view, is the last taboo subject that isn't discussed on the school syllabus, the PHCC syllabus. And we're here to undo that. We're here to fix that and to make it part of the PHCC syllabus. So the last taboo subject. So we had this idea of how we would put this triad, really, of children, gaming, and cancer all together. Okay? And in a sensitive manner, and hopefully this will come to fruition with our educational colleagues, is it will start off with things like green veg, no fags, and keep the weight down, and keep going like that. And that'll be the young ones. Then we'll move up to HPV vaccination rates and things like that. And there's one school in Stockton near to us has got, despite the best efforts of the teams and despite the vaccination being given in school, that the boys at that school have got a 5% uptake rate and the girls have got a 9% uptake rate for something that prevents cervical cancer and a lot of oral cancers as well. And then finally, I think most importantly, we actually teach them about adult screening programs. and I'm involved with a lung one, but adult screening programs and adult red flag symptoms. So what I want is conversations around the kitchen table. I want the pester power of the children not to be to get the next PS4 or PS5, but actually, Mum, how's your cervical smear getting on? Dad, have you had your PSA done? By the way, Granddad's had a cough for 3 weeks. Why hasn't he had a chest x-ray? Because we know within all our campaigns so far, and Stephen Lynn's here tonight, he did a search for me, this is the first time we think anybody has harnessed the pester power of children to let the adults do the right thing. All our campaigns run about 60%. If we can get up to 75%, we can go far. So we want to harness that using that holy trinity, really, of gaming, children and cancer. And I am indebted to Nicola and Stephen and all the colleagues and the students at the back from UTC who gave us some stakeholding information a couple of weeks ago. That's all really I have to say, but thank you much for your time, and any questions you can come and speak to me afterwards. Thanks so much.
Hey. Hi. Hey, everyone. Hello there. What an amazing, warm welcome. I can't believe how many people are in the room. Jeez, I thought there was going to be like 2 people here. They didn't tell me it was like 400 odd. Anyway, never mind. Thank you so much, guys, for the lovely warm welcome. Who is in front of you today? Nicolas Hamilton. You'd have probably heard of the surname Hamilton quite a few times over the last, 10, 15 years. That's probably because of my 7-time Formula One world champion, Sir Lewis Hamilton. Well, it's not really that important, is it, to be fair? We're here to talk about me. But I mean, for sure, you've got the most, the better looking Hamilton, the more mature Hamilton on stage in front of you today. So you've definitely got the best Hamilton here for your event. So thank you for having me. I appreciate that. So to kick things off, it's just a story about me. I don't like talking about myself, but that's what I'm here to do. So my story starts born 2 months premature, diagnosed with spastic diplegia, which is a form of cerebral palsy. Now, cerebral palsy is like an umbrella of loads of different types of conditions. You've got diplegia, which is two limbs, hemiplegia, which is like down one side, and then it can get as severe as not being able to walk, not being able to feed yourself, being constantly reliant on a wheelchair or a helper. So I sort of class myself now, at least, as one of the lucky ones. But it wasn't really like that initially. When I was born, I was whisked away into an incubator. I wasn't breathing. And my parents didn't really know whether I was going to make it or not. And my mum told me how awful that period of time for her was. And I was like, Mum, I'm sure it's totally fine. But she was like, no, honestly, you're pretty much on baby life support. Look, here's a picture. And she showed me, and it really hit home. Made me realize that for my parents to go through that situation, not knowing whether their son is going to make it. I think I was born at 4 pound 4, so I was super tiny. It must have been a really, really hard period of time for them. But fortunately, I made it, made my way through, and they took me home. And I wasn't really progressing like a normal, able-bodied child. Every time I stood, my legs were bent, and I was standing on my tiptoes, so I could never put my heels down. My mum said every time I tried to push myself in like a baby walker, I would only be able to push both legs, and I'd push backwards instead of forwards. So they looked at each other, my parents, thinking, something's definitely not right with our son. We should probably go and get him checked out a little bit. So when I was 18 months old, they took me back to the hospital, and that's when I was diagnosed with spastic diplegia, CP. And they said I would never be able to walk, and at best with a stick. And I was born with a squint, so pretty much cross-eyed. They said my right eye, which is lazy, would severely deteriorate as I got older. So it wasn't looking very fruitful for me as a child. Now, Lewis is my bigger and uglier brother. 7.5 years older than me he is, even though he acts 7.5 years younger than me most of the time. You know, he's fully able-bodied. So my parents have never had a disabled son before, or any child before that is disabled. So for them, it's completely new territory. And it's not like you can go to a library and pick up a book on how to bring up a child with CP. There's nothing that you can really read online. It's all about trial and error and understanding what works and what doesn't work. So my parents, I believe to this day, looked at each other in this hospital room or wherever it was, doctor's room, and thought, yeah, we're going to make his life hell. We're not going to wrap him up in cotton wool. You know, we're going to treat him like any other able-bodied child, but we understand that it's going to be a lot harder for him because really the world is built for able-bodied people, and it's just unfortunate that now our son has almost a disabled body, and we're going to have to teach him the ways of the world. So that's how it started. Now, my dad, who I'll get into my dad later, but he's a very hardcore man. Pretty brutal, to be fair. He's West Indian, and so he'd never take no for an answer. He's always making sure that I got the best out of myself from a really super early age. So when it all started, as I said, when I was a toddler, my legs were bent like this. I was on my tiptoes, so I could never actually put the full soles of my feet on the floor. And every time I tried to make a step, my left leg would be my leading leg, but it would be so super tight that I could never really pick my leg high enough to get up a step or make a step generally. And then my trailing leg would just drag along behind me. And so I would fall over really, really easily. And with a disability, with CP, you've got to sort of learn how to fall over and not break your wrist or land on your head. But to start with, I was landing on my head, and I seemed to find the corners of everything, the corner of my mum's plant pot and the corner of my dad's hi-fi system. So I was bleeding to death, thinking, God, this is awful. And my dad is shouting at me Nick, pick up your feet. Nick, you know there's uneven ground and uneven pavement there. Look where you're going. I'm like, geez, Dad, I'm 4 years old. I'm 4 years old. I have no idea what this condition is. I don't know what I'm doing. And you're shouting at me already. So my dad was on my case straight away. And my mum my mum is amazing. She's a lovely, lovely lady. And super soft, but also very, very tough at the same time. So every time I fell over, you know, like in Tesco's, for example, people around us, there'd be another lady around us, go, oh my God. And my mum would be like, no, he's fine. Just leave him to it. All right? So she would just look in the corner of her eye, and as long as I hadn't broken an arm, broken a leg, she'd just carry on. So I learned from a really early age that I had to fall over, land in whatever way I could. If I was fast enough to put my hands out in front of me, great. I might end up on my shoulder, I might end up on my head, whatever it is, but I learned to pick myself up, dust myself down, and get on with it pretty easily. So my parents could see that I was struggling physically, and especially with the tightness of my muscles, they could see that I couldn't have a sustainable life almost like this. So at 4 years old, I got a life-changing operation. And this life-changing operation was called a tendon release. So basically, they cut the backs of my hamstrings, the backs of my ankles, and into my groin muscle, which then allowed me to actually stand up straight or straighter and actually put the full soles of my feet on the floor. And that was all provided by the NHS, which my parents definitely wouldn't have had the funding to do it. So if it wasn't for the NHS, I pretty much wouldn't be here today. So I just want to say thank you for that. Now I had these sort of these new legs, new lease of life, and I had to pretty much just go through life in the best way that I could. So the next step, the next stage, was going to school. Now my dad, being brutal, wouldn't allow me to go to a disabled school or a specialist school or school for the disabled. He wanted me to go to a normal, comprehensive, able-bodied school. So the first thing was going to school for my first day, primary school, and I was very quick to understand and notice that I was the only disabled person there at about 8 years old, and the only black or person of color there at that school. And the racial side wasn't really a big issue for me, because my parents, they sheltered me a lot from any racial issues that they had. But I did notice that I was the only disabled person. But at 8 years old, I'd never met another disabled person at that point. So I thought I was the only disabled person in the world at that point. Now, with my primary school, the cool thing about it was that it was super tiny, and I had to only be in one classroom for all of my lessons. So I didn't really need to walk very far, and every time I walked, I had these new legs, so it was a little bit easier. And I made friends, even though my friends were, a little bit odd. They were staring at me, making me feel a little bit weird, and they were asking me questions, and I didn't really know the answer to them. But because of this operation, rehabilitation is super, super important, and physiotherapy is pretty much everything. And I like to explain physiotherapy like homework, but painful homework, so it's even worse, right? And you've got to be stretching pretty much every day, really, in an ideal world, especially through your growth spurt. So if you keep your legs supple, when you start growing, it'll be easier on your legs. So I didn't want to put this pressure on my mum. Don't tell her, but I thought she was pretty much terrible at the physiotherapy anyway. She sort of didn't really know what she was doing. But I ended up having this helper, right? This helper at school. And this helper would stretch me at all of the lunchtime and break times throughout the day. So all my friends are outside playing tag or whatever it is, hide and seek, and I'm inside doing this physiotherapy around this condition that I have no idea what it is. And my helper, she's amazing. Her name was Mrs. Wood. Absolutely amazing lady. The downside to her, she had freezing cold hands every time she touched me, So I'm in the library. I'm in the library basically on my front, and got these cold hands touching me all the bloody time, and trying to stretch me and pull my leg in different directions that I didn't even know it could go in that direction. And so it was a really, really tough time for me. So already at like the age of 8, I was questioning my whole purpose, my whole reasoning behind being here. Why am I on this planet with this condition? I think 1 in 500 births diagnosed with cerebral palsy. Why me? Why can't I just be like all my other able-bodied friends? What have I done so wrong to have this condition? Why, if there's a God, why have you given me this condition almost? And my mum is my everything, right? She's like both my arms. If I didn't have my mum, I don't know where I would be. And she's made me the man I am today. And she gave me the best advice, I've ever been given, which was, Nick, first of all, you're only 8 years old. You've got your whole life ahead of you. I understand that it's difficult at this period of time, but you've got to understand that you're unique, you're different. You're different to everybody else, and it's good to be unique, it's good to be different. And she basically said that, able-bodied people, they all walk the same, they all look the same, and really they all act the same. And you look different, you walk different, and you are different. You should be proud of that. And if ever time gets tough, just lean on me. I'm here to support you regardless, all the time. And that then gave me the strength that I needed to then move forward into the next stage of my life. And that next stage was secondary school. Secondary school is, it's big boy school, big deal, humongous deal. And, you want to be one of the cool kids. You want to fit in straight away. So I was like, okay, got my top button done up, looking super smart, thinking, there's these new kids I've never seen before that they're so tall. My legs are a little bit bent, and my parents are short, so they didn't bless me with height. So, everyone else is like looming over me. I was like, I want to be one of the cool kids. I'm like sort of standing, trying to be cool. And then my whole family are there, like embarrassing me. My dad's got his like camcorders back in those days, where my dad's like, Nick, smile, and he's like circling me on my first day, and I'm like, Dad, go away, there's girls over there. There's girls over there, I want to be cool. So I end up doing my first day, and quickly I notice that my secondary school is like 5 times, 6 times the size of my primary school. Now, I've been doing all this physiotherapy through primary school, so I look super straight, super supple, my legs look good, my legs look strong, but I got to walk from the design technology block to the maths block to the science block to the English block, and then I got to have like big heavy bags full of books on my back, so I'm like buckaroo. And I got to keep walking to class. So I keep falling over, landing on my hands, cutting my hands, whatever it is, getting to class eventually, and being battered. Not even able to focus on the schoolwork, the studying, because I get to class and I don't even know what day it is. I'm like, shit, this is just the first day. What am I going to do? So I remember going back home to my mum. She's like, Nick, how was your first day? She's like, you look awful. I'm like, yeah, cheers, Mum. I've had a really tough day, believe it or not. And she said, well, you can't really continue doing this. Like, if walking's too much of an issue for you or a big problem for you, we need to think of plan B. So she said, go back to school, do as best as you can, and we'll think of plan B. So I go back to school, and I realized I'm the only disabled person yet again at this school, and actually the only person of color at this school, which is actually a bigger deal, because there's now like 1,000 pupils in this school, and I was the only person of color. So I remember these kids, you know, they're pretty brutal. They say what they see, and they're constantly staring at me, making me feel different, making me feel like I'm some sort of alien, like I don't belong, like I'm not accepted. I was thinking to myself, how do I speak to everybody? How can I speak to everybody, tell people about myself, even though I don't really know much about my condition, to try and break the ice? So I decided to speak in front of everybody at assembly. Now, when I was 8 years old, my mum said, eventually I'll start to grow into myself and want to talk about myself. And I found myself in this unique position where I was talking in front of 150, 200 Year 7 children, faces that I've never seen before, talking about this condition that I don't really know much about, and plus I'm a little bit, I feel a little bit anxious about it. And I would just say, hi, I'm Nick, got this condition, don't know what it is. But instead of staring at me, making me feel awkward or odd, if you've got a question, just ask me. And I will answer in the best way I can. And that was a real cool moment, a massive moment for me, like a turning point that I didn't realize at that time, of me now getting confident about talking about my condition and being different. So I went home that day, and my mum said, right, I've got plan B. Plan B, we're going to put you in a wheelchair. Great idea, Mum. Firstly, because I can just push myself everywhere, can put my bags on my back, on the back of the wheelchair, don't need to walk anywhere. Perfect. So I go into school the next day, and obviously I was a kid that was being stared at, and people were looking at me a little bit odd. But all of a sudden, I was like the coolest thing since sliced bread. They were like, whoa, Nick's in a wheelchair, bruh, bruh. I was like, well, first of all, it's not a brap situation. This is like a serious situation. I'm in a wheelchair, it's not cool, it's not good, but it helps me, right? So all of a sudden, I got all these mates being like, yo, can I take Nick to lunch? Can I take Nick to break time? And I'm like, hang on, you just want to take me to lunch or break time because I can get you there earlier and we can skip the queue and you don't have to like do the last 10 minutes of class. But if it's a popularity contest, I'll take it, right? So here I am going to class, all of a sudden I've got all these friends around me. Now, I end up, using my wheelchair to go to Lewis's races. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about Lewis. Now, Lewis, who is an amazing person, absolutely incredible human being. A story about him, really, really quick story about him, because obviously it's not important at all. My dad, he came from nothing, lost his mum when he was 16, and didn't really have a direction of where he wanted to go. He had Lewis, obviously, wanted to keep Lewis out of trouble. They went on holiday when Lewis was like 8 years old. They found this like go-karting activity. Lewis seemed to really enjoy it. He was racing RC cars at the time. And remote control car racing is actually a motorsport in itself. And Lewis is one of these like really annoying people that is amazing at everything he does, right? So at 6 years old, he's racing against 30, 20, 25-year-olds at professional RC car racing and finishes second in the British Championship, right? Mad. So my dad is like, oh, he seems to like go-karts. So my dad decided to get him a go-kart when he was 8 years old. Now, my dad didn't have a lot of money. He was working 3 or 4 jobs to pay for Lewis's motorsport. So my dad bought this like third-hand rust bucket shitbox of a go-kart, basically. Had rusty tires, terrible engine. He had all the gear, went to his local kart circuit, and he won his first race. Unbelievable. All right, won his first race, thought, wow, Lewis is pretty good at this. So then, something that just started as a hobby, something to keep us out of trouble, keep Lewis out of trouble. By the time Lewis was 10, he was British champion. By the time he was 13, he was signed by McLaren, the Formula 1 team. And then our whole life was about getting him to where he is today. So as a family, we were a family unit, getting him as far up the ladder as possible. We didn't even know Formula 1 was a goal for us. We just followed our dream, or Lewis's dream, of what he wanted to do, and he seemed pretty good at it. So I ended up trying to overcome this condition, understand where I was as a person. And so I started going to all of these races with this wheelchair, because it's vast, it's really far to walk. And so by the time I was like 15, I was going to all these races. I was then coming back to school, and I think kids were getting a bit like jealous, the fact that I was sort of missing a Friday every week. Yeah, so I was getting a day off. And the whole, like best thing since sliced bread, like I was super cool. It just turned into flat-out bullying by the time I was 15. So people were now coming behind me, pulling me backwards in my wheelchair, leaving me there stranded, and I couldn't really fight or fend or defend for myself. And I really needed this wheelchair because it was helping my mobility, but everyone was just taking the mick out of me. So I remember going to Lewis, saying, Lewis, all these kids are now bullying me, what do we do? He said, well, we just need to make you cool. I was like, what do you mean cool? I'm already cool. He's like, oh, I mean, we'll make you cooler. Make you cooler. Okay, fine. So he's like, we'll just, I don't know, teach you some tricks or something. So, I got this wheelchair provided by the NHS, right? And they had these anti-tippers on the back of the wheelchair, so you can't fall back. Lewis was like, well, we'll get rid of those, like pull those off. So I was like, okay, great, so I can fall back and break my neck. Perfect. Okay, cool. So he taught me how to do wheelies, and I was spinning around and jumping downstairs. And it lasted for like 2 days. I was doing like these cool tricks. And then it just got into like boring bullying again. So I then started to realize that I'm trying to change myself as a person to fit in. And I should never have to change who I am as a person to fit in with other people. If they don't like me for who I am, that's not actually my problem. It's their problem. And I've got to stay strong, almost like a mountain. Like, it doesn't matter whether they change their mind about me from day to day. I'm going to stand strong, be who I am, and follow my path, my trajectory, which I didn't really know at that time. So now, where am I? 30 years old, which is unbelievable. I'm actually 31 on Tuesday, which I'm really upset about. But where am I today? Actually, British racing driver, driving in the pinnacle of British motorsport, the British Touring Car Championship. Now, I like to explain myself like a Paralympian in the Olympics, because there is nobody with any disability driving in the top level of British motorsport. Now, how did I get there? Well, I loved motor racing. I always wanted to race. And I remember when I was 3 years old or 4, I said to my dad, Dad, can I drive a go-kart? And he said, Nick, I will put you in a go-kart when you're strong enough to run away from a go-kart, which is pretty good advice, really. And so I got to 7 years old, and he was like, Nick, today's your day. Today is your day. I've got you a little go-kart, rented it from a friend. We'll go to a car park where there's nothing that you can hit. Famous last words. And we can, you can just get to grips with everything. So we went to this car park. As I said, I'm 7 years old, so I'm super tiny. Everything's magnified when you're 7 years old. This car park's massive. And it had a ramp that went into the car park. He said, so we're just going to do a little brake test. I'm going to push you down the ramp, and you need to brake. So he said, right foot is go, left foot is brake. So he pushed me down this ramp. He said, stop. And I didn't really stop. I just stopped because the ramp finished. And he was like, well, fair enough. We've come this far. You look all right. You sort of can seem like you can steer. we'll start you up. So he started me up. He said, right, just do a figure of 8, go in one direction, turn around, come back, and just get used to the controls. And I was like wearing all of Lewis's gear. So all the gear, no idea situation. And I was actually doing it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, I'm driving a go-kart for the first time. And I basically didn't come back, and I hit this curb and disappeared down like a 6-foot drop. So if my parents are like watching me go in the distance, I've just disappeared off the face of the earth, right? My mum comes running over. Her hair's all over the place. My dad's heart's in his mouth, and they peer down this like drop, and there's me sitting in this go-kart, 6 inches of water. Luckily, I haven't toppled over. And that was it. It was like looking at my dad thinking, what the hell have you put me in? Never again. So they pulled me out, and that was it. No racing for Nick, and I just focused on schooling. And I went, as you know, I've gone through my school story. So whilst I've been following Lewis for years and years and years, I turned my attention to gaming. Gaming, like esports, is actually a thing now. It's a proper industry. Back then, when I was a kid, it wasn't. But gaming was an important thing. So all I did was play games. My dad was like, Nick, do something constructive. Read a book. You're not going to get anywhere playing games, which I completely ignored and continued to play on this game. So I started racing this game. And I know Lewis isn't here to defend himself, but I kicked his ass on this racing game, right? He could never beat me. And he would probably say, yeah, to be honest, I won't be able to beat you. And I got so good at it that I learned everything to learn, or there was to learn, about car setup and camber and caster and ride height and braking and lines and all this sort of stuff, where in 2009 I became British #1 on this game. So I'm upstairs having a party. Woo! British #1, can't believe it. My parents have no idea what I'm talking about, and it's wasted on them. But by the time I'm now out of my wheelchair, and I'm out of my wheelchair because I went to a check-in desk at an airport, and I was 16, growing a beard, getting strong, getting into girls, and this lady, my mum pushed me up to this check-in desk, and this lady didn't even look at me as a person. She just looked at my mum and said, Mrs. Hamilton, does your son need assistance? Does he require this? Does he require that? Never looked at me as a person. So I thought to myself, geez, the only way I'm going to get out of this situation is if I actually start walking. So I decided from that day on, I would never set foot or set bum in a wheelchair ever again, right? So I used to leave my wheelchair at school in the staff room. I used to use it every day, and then I decided I basically got to learn how to walk again. My legs were like mush. I couldn't go to the toilet and back without being tired, but I knew I had to go through the pain to get going. So since that day, I haven't been in a wheelchair now for, 15 years? And that was a big change in my life. Thank you. I'm running out of time, but I'm trying to go through it as fast as I can. I'm running out of time. So where was I? Yeah. So I got out of my wheelchair and said to my dad, Dad, like, my brother is really impressed by my skills in racing. Lewis said to me, Nick, you should try and drive for real if you can. And I was like, yeah, but I can't have, like, modifications. I probably might need modifications. He said, well, just ask Dad if Dad would put you in a race car. And I said, yeah, but you remember when I was 7 and I crashed, so he'll say no. So I said to Dad, would you put me in a race car? He said, absolutely not. Remember what happened when you were 7? I said, yeah, but Dad, I'm 18, 19 now. I'm strong. I've overcome my condition. I'm walking. I'm not in my wheelchair. Give me an opportunity. So he's like, fine. Put me in a BMW M3 at this driving school. He said to the guy that owns it, he's not going to be any good, but I just want to give him the opportunity, because he might not, I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I didn't give him the opportunity. So I ended up making sure I could brake. And the reason why I crashed when I was 7, because my left leg wasn't strong enough to hit the brake pedal effectively, which was what the whole brake test was about, which I failed, obviously, miserably. And so I could make sure I could brake was the first thing. And I ended up beating the instructor by a second on my first day. So my dad was like, oh, shit, that's really backfired. It's really backfired on me. So he was like, I'll take you back. It took me back 2 weeks later to make sure it wasn't a fluke. And I did the same thing. So he was like, okay, so I guess you want to race now. And I said, yeah, I would love to race, Dad. And my dad decided to put me in the Renault Clio Cup Championship, which is the toughest one-make series in the UK. It's a step below the British Touring Car Championship. And he gave me 2 months to get ready. He said, you've got 2 months to get ready, and the BBC are going to film a fly-on-the-wall documentary of your first season, so no pressure. Never driven a car in my life. And so when I started training, I had to push the leg press, because braking is everything. You've got to push like 70 kilos worth of pressure every time you hit the pedal. And I can only push like 10 kilos of pressure with both of my legs. I need to get to like 90 with my left leg. So I kept pushing. I was in the gym 3 hours a day, pushing this leg press. My pelvis was popping out or coming out of position. My ribs were popping out of place. And I just knew that this was my opportunity to potentially change my life, because the stronger I could become for racing, the stronger I'd become in general life and be more independent. So long story short, I was able to push 130 kilos with my left leg by the time I got to my first race. I did my first race. I got my first documentary, which filmed the first season of my career, and it reached 2.1 million people on the night, 50 million people worldwide, and people were starting to see who I was as a person, as Nick Hamilton, you know, and what I've achieved to be where I was at that point. So I then decided I wanted to keep moving forward, trying to get sponsors on my own and try and build my own personality, my own brand, and almost step out of Lewis's shadow, even though Lewis's shadow is always going to be very big. But it doesn't mean that I wouldn't change it for the world. So in 2015, I raised just enough money to compete in the British Touring Car Championship. I was the first disabled athlete ever to compete in the British Touring Car Championship. I've been in there now for about to start my 5th season, and in 2020, I was the first disabled athlete ever to score points in the British Touring Car Championship. So, yeah, I've really run out of time, but, you know, I wonder where my bullies are now. You know, where are they now? Are they you know, standing up in front of 400-odd people talking about a story that they didn't know would happen, trying to inspire people, trying to change the game, trying to make history in motorsport. And I do this public speaking alongside my motorsport, and it's what keeps me going. It's what makes me get up in the morning. I realize that I'm not really here anymore to live for myself. I feel like I'm in service to other people. So every day I wake up and I go through the ins and outs and ups and downs of my condition and my mental strength and abilities. I go through the pain and the challenges to be able to then share the story with you guys. And when I was 8 years old, I just wanted to be like everybody else. But now, as a 30-year-old, you know, I'm not gloating, but last year I did 40 events talking to people like yourselves. And for me, that's really shown what my purpose is all about. And I do that through my motorsport and things like this today. And at 8 years old, I just wanted to be able-bodied. But now I wouldn't change my disability for the world. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to share just my story. I'm just one of millions and millions and billions of people with a story. Everyone here has a story, and they've achieved so many amazing things. It doesn't mean that I'm any better than you guys, and you guys definitely don't need to go and push 130 kilos on a leg press. You just got to be the best version of you that you can be. So yeah, I'm a bit out of time, 1 minute and 43 seconds over. So yeah, apologies, but thank you so much, guys.
How'd you follow that? I'm so sorry you ran out of time. It was amazing. And ladies and gentlemen, that was Nicolas Hamilton, definitely better looking than his brother Lewis. Shall we present some awards? Yes, let's do it. We have 10 in total. First place receives £1,000 to help develop the bright idea. And all of our finalists will receive a certificate for having done an incredible job in being one of the 30 of getting to this stage. So let's get started. First up is development of an innovative technology or device. CPI, our category sponsors. Let me tell you who our finalists are. We have Halo Gravity Traction Device, Newcastle upon Tyne Hospital's NHS Foundation Trust. We have point-of-care blood test for the pre-hospital identification of stroke patients suitable for emergency thrombectomy treatment, Newcastle University and Pocket Diagnostics. And saving more lives, giving transplant organs air to breathe, Scuba Techs Limited in collaboration with Newcastle University. Without further ado, in first place, it's point-of-care blood test for the pre-hospital identification of stroke patients suitable for emergency thrombectomy treatment. Come and join us. So, Pocket Diagnostic LV1 identifies LVO strokes within minutes, facilitating rapid treatment and improving patient outcomes. Currently, LVO stroke identification involves a brain scan, which can only be done in hospital. This is a project from Newcastle University and Pocket Diagnostics. Smile for the camera and give them a round of applause. Congratulations, guys. Next up, it is digital innovation in health and social care. Our finalists are Local Health Index, Northumbria Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust, Sunderland Clinical Support Information, Sunderland GP Alliance and Sunderland Clinical Reference Group, and Radar Waiting Well Dashboard, NECS, a care system support organisation, and the Newcastle upon Tyne Hospital's NHS Foundation Trust. So, in first place tonight, it is Sunderland Clinical Support Information. Come and join us! So, Sunderland Clinical Support Information, Sunderland GP Allowance. A lack of quality referral information and significant variability in pathways and referrals was the driving force for a centralised pathway management tool. Sunderland Clinical Support Information, many congratulations. Let's give them a round of applause. We move on to innovation in clinical education, sponsored by Health Education England North East. So our three finalists are MDT, Fetal Wellbeing Education Programme, Northumbria Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust, Human Factors and Civility Education to engender safety culture change, South Tees Hospitals NHS Foundation Trust, Enhancing Care for Older People, NENC ICB, on behalf of the NENC Ageing Well Network. And I can tell you that our winner tonight is MDT, Fetal Wellbeing Educational Programme. So we welcome Lisa McQueen and her team to the stage. So this is an education programme designed to improve maternity care with a focus on fetal well-being. The programme combines an MDT-focused approach with human factor principles and provides teams with a safe space to reflect on the way they work. Lisa McQueen and her team from MDT Fetal Wellbeing Educational Programme. Okie doke, award number 4, demonstrating an impact upon patient safety and or quality improvement. Our finalists are See and Treat Skin Cancer Service, County Durham and Darlington NHS Foundation Trust, with the Macmillan Cancer Team and staff in dermatology, outpatients and theatres. Hot Debriefing, Encouraging Rapid Post-Incident, Northumbria Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust, and 3D Printing in Trauma and Orthopaedics, South Tees Hospital NHS Foundation Trust, in collaboration with Zimmer Biomet and Deputy Synths. So, let me tell you who the winner is, and it is 3D Printing in Trauma and Orthopaedics. So, 3D Printing in Trauma and Orthopaedics, South Tees Hospitals NHS Foundation Trust. Cross-sectional imaging is used to create one-to-one scale 3D printed models of bone and joint deformity, which are used as a dry run simulation before surgery to ensure all necessary equipment is available, reducing theatre time and facilitating improved clinical care through greater surgical accuracy. Am I going on too long? Sorry. Give them a round of applause. Cross-organisation working to deliver research is our next award. It's sponsored by NIHR, Clinical Research Network, North East and North Cumbria. We have food insecurity in adults with severe mental illness, Tees, Esk and Wear Valleys NHS Foundation Trust. NCBD Stoma Programme, a medley across organisations to deliver high-impact commercial research. The Newcastle upon Tyne Hospitals NHS Foundation Trust and Newcastle University. Increasing research exposure to primary care practices and patient populations in North East England. The Newcastle upon Tyne Hospitals NHS Foundation Trust. And the winner tonight is NCBD Stoma Programme. Congratulations to Richard Brady and the team. The NCBD Stoma Programme. Richard Brady and his team from the Newcastle upon Tyne Hospital's NHS Foundation Trust. A programme of research to assess a new innovative telemedicine service linked to a stoma device for stoma, representing Coloplast Limited's vision of the future of stoma care. Please don't fall off the back of the stage. This required the creation of a novel and national patient hybrid recruitment solutions and demonstrated an exceptional cross-organisational NHS-NIHR industrial partnerships. Congratulations, guys. Outstanding Industry Collaboration is our next award. Our finalists are Saving More Lives, Giving Transport Organs Air to Breathe, Scuba Techs Limited in collaboration with Newcastle University. Innovations in Gastroenterology and Endoscopy, County Durham and Darlington NHS Foundation Trust and Medtronic Inc. Development of a new hazardous patient transport device, the Newcastle upon Tyne Hospital's NHS Foundation Trust and BBL Protect Limited. And the winner, development of a new hazardous patient transport device. Congratulations to Alison Sykes and the team. Come and join us. So delighted to welcome Alison Sykes and team, winner of the Outstanding Industry Collaboration Award, the Newcastle upon Tyne Hospital's NHS Foundation Trust. The idea for the Aeropod was developed following the COVID pandemic, and it provides a safe and practical way to transport patients who may be infectious, contaminated or immunodeficient. The device is lightweight and can be easily transported in ambulance and air ambulance. It means patients can be safely moved from one location to another. Congratulations, guys. Give them a round of applause. Award number 7 is Innovation and Improvement in Reducing Healthcare Inequalities. So our finalists are Autism Expert by Experience, South Tyneside and Sunderland NHS Foundation Trust, Community Hearing Screening for Adults with Learning Disabilities, South Tyneside and Sunderland NHS Foundation Trust, and Reducing the Physical Health Gap for People with SMI through Digital Innovation Health Call. First place tonight, it's Autism Expert by Experience. Please welcome Emma Lee and the team. So, Emma Lee and her team from South Tyneside and Sunderland NHS Foundation Trust, a collaboration between South Tyneside Life Cycle Primary Care Mental Health Service, the Life Cycle Service and Autism in Mind, to improve healthcare for autistic children and adults by inviting an expert by experience to observe and access all areas of the service and provide a report on what works well and what needs improvement. Congratulations, guys. Lovely smiles. Look at that. Give them a massive round of applause. Next award, Contribution to Sustainable Healthcare. The finalists are Healthcare Ocean, Healthcare Ocean and County Durham and Darlington NHS Foundation Trust, Northumbria Healthcare Manufacturing Hub, Northumbria Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust, and Continuous Remote Monitoring using Wearable Technologies, North Cumbria ICP. First place, Contribution to Sustainable Healthcare. The winner is Northumbria Healthcare Manufacturing Hub. Sarah Rose and team, come and join us. So here they come, Sarah Rose and team from Northumbria Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust, the Northumbria Healthcare Manufacturing Hub, in response to COVID-19 and the national issues in the supply of PPE. A PPE manufacturing service was created to ensure that the frontline healthcare workers within the trust had a continuous supply of quality PPE. Let's give them a lovely round of applause. Right, it is Innovation Champion Team Award. Our finalists are No One Left Behind, meeting the changing needs of palliative patients in the community throughout the pandemic and beyond, St Aldwell's Hospice. Northumbria Healthcare Manufacturing Hub, Northumbria Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust. And from bench to bedside, NIHR, Newcastle In Vitro Diagnostics Cooperative, Newcastle MIC, the Newcastle upon Tyne Hospital's NHS Foundation Trust. Our winner tonight is St Oswald's Hospice Daycare Service. Kath Clark and her team from St Oswald's Hospice Daycare Service. When the impact of the pandemic closed St Oswald's Hospice's day services with immediate effect, their team responded swiftly and imaginatively so that patients could continue to receive safe, high-quality care and support at home or in a community setting. The care team rapidly adapted services and developed new ones to help some of the region's most vulnerable patients to continue to live well at home and in most cases to achieve their preferred place of death. Let's hear it for St Oswald's Hospice Daycare Service. And so we come to our final award, Innovation Champion. Let me tell you who our final finalists tonight are. We have Caroline Tweedy, Specialist Breast Care Nurse, Gateshead Health NHS Foundation Trust. Professor Ahmet Fuat, GP and GPSI Cardiology, Carmel Medical Practice Darlington and Darlington PCN CVD and Research Lead, Carmel Medical Practice Darlington. And number 3, Charlotte Mutton, Specialist Lead Bereavement Midwife, South Tyneside and Sunderland NHS Foundation Trust. So we have a runner-up in this category who will receive £500 to further their bright idea. And I'm delighted to tell you that our runner-up tonight is Professor Ahmet Fuat, GP and GPSI Cardiology, Carmel Medical Practice, Darlington. Please come and join us. Professor Fuat embraces new technologies and innovations and develops new clinical pathways to improve the health of patients in Darlington and beyond. He's pioneered new approaches to the identification and management of heart failure, harnessing digital search tools, and is leading a novel approach to identification of those with familial, I wasn't going to read this bit either, hypercholesterolemia, incorporating the use of saliva-based home testing. So that leaves our final first place. And I am delighted to tell you we have joint first place, Charlotte Mutton and Caroline Tweedy. Come and join us. What a lovely way to finish our awards. So Charlotte Mutton is Specialist Lead Bereavement Midwife with South Tyneside and Sunderland NHS Foundation Trust. And Caroline Tweedy is Specialist Breast Care Nurse with Gateshead Health NHS Foundation Trust. And they will each receive £750 to further their bright ideas. Give them a massive round of applause. All that's left for me to do is say thank you to AHSN NENC for supporting the event. Huge thanks to all of our speakers, award presenters, exhibitors, and of course sponsors. Special thanks to Nicolas Hamilton and to all of you for being here on a school night. Please would all of our finalists come back to the stage to collect their certificates from the lovely Sarah Black. Winners, you can collect boxes for your trophies, but we would like all the winners and finalists on the stage for photographs. I am relieved for you to be able to say, that's it from me. Thank you for listening. I'm Kim Ingalls. Good night.